All right, so we are on the last lesson of chapter 2, which is 2.8, literal equations and dimensional analysis. There is one more lesson called weighted averages, but we're not going to cover that this year. We might come back to it at the end of the semester if we have time, but I'm thinking we're not going to have time. So we're almost done with chapter 2. This lesson is called literal equations and dimensional analysis, and that sounds like so hard, right? That sounds, wait, what? What is she even talking about? It is so much easier than that, I promise you. So the only thing that we are really doing for the front and back of these notes for this whole lesson is rearranging an equation that has several different variables to get one of those variables by itself on one side of the equal sign. That's it, okay? So it says solve for variables, and I know you can't see this entire thing. This file is available in this folder on Schoology, so you can always open it up and read it yourself, but I'll just read it to you. Sometimes you may want to solve an equation such as V equals L times W times H for one of its variables. For example, if you know the values of V, W, and H, then the equation L equals blah, blah, blah is more useful. Okay, that's not helpful. So here for this first example, all we're doing is it gives us this equation and it says to solve it for y. Solve for y just means get y by itself. Get y alone. That's it. That's all it means, right? We can't completely solve for y. We're not going to get a number for y because we still don't know what x is. So we have to know what x is to know what y is, but by solving for y, we're at least getting y on one side of the equal sign by itself. So we'll get something that looks like y equals blah, blah, blah. Even if that blah, blah, blah has variables in it, that's okay. All right, so 2x minus 4y equals 8. I tried to kind of put a box around the y. This is what we're trying to get alone. So we need to get rid of the 2x. We need to get rid of the 4. And they're already doing it for you here. It's a written out example. So first they get rid of this 2x. It's a positive 2x, so they subtract it. So 2x minus 2x, they go away. And we're left with negative 4y on this side of our equal sign. On the right side, we had 8. And we subtracted 2x, because whatever we do here, we have to do here. Well, we can't combine those, right? This one does not have an x in it. This one does. And that's okay. It is okay. We are not solving this down to one number. Our goal here is to get y by itself. So we're on our way there. So we've got negative 4y equals 8 minus 2x, and that's fine. And now we need to get rid of the negative 4y. It is not y minus 4. You cannot get rid of that negative 4 by adding 4. You have to get rid of it by undoing what it's doing to the variable. And it's multiplying the variable, right? Negative 4 times y. So to get rid of this negative 4, we have to undo it by dividing by negative 4. So we have to divide the other side by negative 4 as well. These negative 4's cancel. And here we divide each of these two terms each by negative 4. So 8 divided by negative 4. Oh, they didn't even do that. They just moved the sign. Oh, I would do that. They just left it the same. That's fine. Well, they're still going to simplify. I would have separated it into two different fractions, but that's okay. That's an extra step. So they did 8 minus 2x. They moved the negative sign up to the top, right? And they rearranged everything. So by moving the negative sign to the top, it makes everything up here negative. It switches the sign, right? It's like saying negative 1 times 8 minus 2x by moving this negative sign to the top. By moving the negative sign to the top, we're making the bottom positive. But since there's a negative sign, something's got to be negative, right? So the entire top becomes negative. The entire top becomes negative 8 plus 2x. And once they have negative 8 plus 2x, they switch them. They just flip-flop them, right? They flip-flop the 2x and the 8 so that the x term comes first. And then it's still all over 4, but since we move the negative sign up, it's just a positive 4. So here we get y equals 2x minus 8 over 4. What I was saying I would have done is y equals 8 divided by negative 4 is negative 2. And negative 2x divided by negative 4 is positive 1/2 x. That's what I would have done. But that's an extra step. They didn't do that, and that's okay. So they left it right here. 2x divided by 4 is 1/2 x. Negative 8 divided by 4 is negative 2. This would have been the same thing as this. This just looks kind of nicer. This looks a little bleh with the fraction. Okay, so all we did was rearrange everything. We didn't simplify nothing. We just moved everything around so that now y is by itself. So essentially we solved for y. Y equals all this other junk over here. All right, example 2. Solve 3m minus n equals km minus 8 for m. We are trying to get m on one side of the equal sign by itself, right? And right now it's on both sides of the equal sign. So we have to use the rules that we know, right? First, we have to get rid of the smallest m. And here, we don't know what's the smallest. They got rid of km. I guess you get rid of the unknown. I'm not 100% sure. So here they subtracted km from both sides of the equal sign. So they got rid of it here. We got it over here. 3m minus n minus km equals negative 8. We can't combine this and this yet because we don't know what k is. Okay. Then they're trying to just get m on this side of the equal sign. So they got to get rid of this n right here. They want to get rid of it. So to get rid of minus m, n, they added n. And these cancel. And since they added in over here, they have to add in over here. You can't combine these, but that's okay. You still add in. So now we've eliminated the n over here, so the variable we have over here is m. We also have a k, but both terms now are being multiplied by m. So we can now factor out an m, right? We can divide both of these terms by m, put the m out front, and everything left over after we divide both of these terms by m goes in parentheses. So 3m divided by m is 3. Bring down the minus sign. Km divided by m is just k. Equals negative 8 plus n. We are trying to get m alone, and right now it's m times this stuff in parentheses. So we have to divide by that stuff in parentheses, and whatever we do on one side of the equal sign, we have to do to the other side. Okay, so these guys cancel each other out. And we get left with m equals all of this, negative 8 plus n over 3 minus k. And that's it. And all they did here was switch the variable. They always try and write the variable first. So if you ever get that chance, I mean, I think that's the finished way to write it. I wouldn't count off if you don't. If you had left it just like this, that is perfectly fine with me. But don't get confused. If this is what you get on a multiple choice test, it's not given as an answer choice, but this is. You do have to understand this is the same thing as this. All they did was flip-flop the negative 8 and the positive n. Right? Okay, so let's just dig into doing some ourselves because this gets like confusing talking about. So let's just try solving. All right, instead of doing all the odd problems, I'm going to just go down the left-hand side here. And then I picked 2 other problems, this number 5 and number 12, to do with you as well. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 problems to do together for this. All right, so here we're solving for x, meaning we're getting x by itself. So first thing we want to do here to get x alone, to get rid of the a and the b, is to add b on both sides of my equal sign. These b's cancel each other out, so I'm left with ax equals, and on the right side here, I have c plus b, right? And I can't combine them because they're different. That's what I have. I'm still trying to get x alone, so now I need to divide by a, so I need to divide this side by a, and these a's cancel. So what I'm left with when x is alone is x equals c plus b all over a. That's my answer. I'm going to do these in different colors so they don't get mixed up because I have a feeling I'm going to run into stuff. All right, for the next one, number 4, xy plus w equals 9. We're solving for a y. So I want to get this guy by itself. It's kind of similar to this one we just did. Okay, so I've got an x and a w I have to get rid of. I'm going to start furthest away from y and get rid of the plus w by subtracting w. So I'm left with x, y equals, and here I had 9 minus w, and I'm trying to get y alone, so I'm going to divide by x, and I got to divide this side by x, and the x's go away. So I'm left with y by itself on the left, and then 9 minus w all over x on the right. And you could switch these and put negative w plus 9. That would be the same thing, all over x. I'm just going to leave it 9 minus w over x. Okay, number 7. As long as you get that variable by itself, you are good to go, because that's what it asked you to do. Solve for y. We got y alone. We're done. All right, number 7. We're going to solve this equation for r. So we need to get rid of everything around r. Before I can touch anything inside parentheses, I need to get rid of what's outside. So I'm going to divide by 4. Here's r, by the way. I'm going to divide by 4 on the left, so I got to divide by 4 on the right. So these 4's cancel, and I'm left with r plus 3 equals t divided by 4, or 1/4 t. And then all I have left to do is subtract 3 and subtract 3. So I'm going to end up with r equals t over 4 minus 3. Done. And it said to solve for r, and I did. I got r alone, so I'm finished. Next one. Number 10, hopefully this is making more sense to you guys. It sounds so, literal equations and dimensional analysis. We're going to get into the dimensional analysis on the other side, but again, it's nothing more difficult than what we're doing. All right, 16w plus 4x equals y. We have to get x alone. Here's x. Okay, so first thing we need to do is get rid of the 16w. So I'm going to subtract 16w on the left, and I got to subtract 16w on the right. These cancel, so I'm left on the left with 4x equals, on the right I have y minus 16w. And then lastly, to get x alone, I got to divide this by 4, and I got to divide this side by 4. So when I do that, the 4's cancel, and I'm left with x, oh, I should do an arrow like I did at the top, x equals y minus 16w all over 4. And I had to solve for x, and I did. X is all by itself, so we're good. Now if it came along and asked us to solve for x, and it told us what y and w are, we just plug them in and solve for x, and we're done, right? We don't have to rearrange anything else. All right, number 13. C, this looks like a Fahrenheit problem. Celsius equals 5/9 times Fahrenheit minus 32. Solve it for F. We have to get F by itself. So before we can touch anything inside parentheses, we have to get rid of the number outside of parentheses. So we need to multiply by the reciprocal. Remember that? So we have to multiply both sides of our equation here by 9 over 5. So I'm going to get 9 over 5c equals, and this 5 over 9 cancels out with the 9 over 5 we multiplied it by. So we're just left with f minus 32. And then to get f alone, I have to add 32 on both sides of my equal sign. So I end up with f equals 9 over 5c plus 32. And I had to solve for f, and I did. It's all alone. Done and done. All right, going back up here to number 5. Remember I told you I had 2 extra ones here I had to do with you? I just want to make sure you understand. Actually, we did one of these already, but we'll do one more. Here it says to solve for k. So here's k. So I'm going to first get rid of what's outside parentheses. It's being multiplied by the parentheses, so I got to divide to get rid of it. So I got to divide over here, and these cancel. So I'm left with 4 minus k equals p divided by x. And I want to get k alone, so I'm going to get rid of the 4, but then I'm going to be left with negative k, right? So these 4's cancel. So I'm going to have negative k equals p over x minus 4. And all I'm going to do to change my sign here is multiply both sides of my equation by negative 1. And that's just going to change my sign. Negative 1 times negative k is positive k. Negative 1 times p over x is negative p over x. Negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4. So that's my answer. K equals negative p over x plus 4. And last one, number 12, we had to solve this whole problem for h. Here is h. All right, so this is like a fraction, sort of. Before we can touch the top, we have to get rid of the bottom. So we're going to multiply both sides of our equation times 2. Right, and these 2's are going to cancel. So I'm left with 2a equals h times a plus b, and I don't have it over 2 anymore, okay? I'm trying to get h alone, so I need to divide by a plus b, because right now it's being multiplied by a plus b. So I can divide this side by a plus b. And these sides cancel each other out. So I'm left with h equals this side, 2a over a plus b. You don't have to keep the parentheses around if it's the only thing on the bottom. If there was other stuff with it, you'd have to put the parentheses around. When it's the only thing, you don't. All right, so again, when you're solving a literal equation, all you're doing is rearranging everything to get whatever variable you're solving for by itself, right? Normally, if we were solving for x, we would get x equals a number, like x equals 7. In this case, if we're solving for x, doing the same thing, x equals, but instead of getting a number, we're going to have other variables that we just moved around. All right, so on the back here, 2-8, the study guide and intervention, now we're focused more on dimensional analysis. So basically, we're changing units of measure. We're taking a formula that has different measurements in it, like volume equals height times whatever, right? We're finding pi r squared h or whatever. We're finding, using formulas with different variables that represent different measurements, and we're moving it around. We're changing the measurement that we're solving for, right? Using the information given. So here, let's just jump into the examples because reading this little top part is just gonna be more confusing. So here, the formula circumference equals pi times d represents the circumference of the circle, or the distance around the circle, when d is the diameter. If an airplane could fly around the Earth without stopping, it would have traveled 24,900 miles. Find the diameter of the Earth, okay? So here, we know circumference equals pi times the diameter. And what it's talking about for a circle is circumference is the distance around the outside of the circle. Diameter is the distance across the center of the circle. And it says something on the Earth about the equator. That's the distance around the middle. So if we know the entire distance around the world that an airplane flies is 24,900 miles, we can figure out what the diameter of the world is, right? So circumference equals pi times d. If we're solving for d, d is the distance of the diameter. Sorry, not distance. D is the diameter. We need to rearrange this equation, literal equation. We're getting d by itself. So if I divide this side by pi, I have to divide this side by pi. These pi's cancel. So I'm left with d equals c over pi, which is what they have here. Right? And then it tells us that the circumference of the Earth is 24,900, right? So they plug in for C, 24,900. That is the circumference. They also go ahead and use 3.14 for pi. If you're using a calculator, which by the way, these TI 30XA calculators are the only calculators approved to use on the Algebra EOC and the Geometry EOC. Algebra 1 and Geometry. So if you go ahead and purchase one of these and you have it yourself, you're going to use it over a few years and you're going to be really familiar with where all the keys are. So on this calculator, we have this pi button. And if you hit the pi button, oh, my calculator's not on. If you hit the pi button, you'll see it comes up pi. And it has a lot more of the decimal attached to it than just 3.14. It's a little more accurate if you hit that pi button. But not all calculators have it and they're not in the same spot. So if you have this calculator, you'll get familiar with something like that. Here, they go ahead and round it. They're not counting on you to have that calculator, so they can round it. And if they divide 24,900 by 3.14, they get about 7,930. And we say about, it looks like they rounded to the nearest whole number. And also we were rounding with pi here, so it's not exact. but that would be the diameter of Earth if the circumference is 24,900 feet, okay? So here we're going to do a few of these on our own. We have 4 problems total, so it shouldn't take too long, but we got to read. I know you can't see all of this, but again, you can go on in this folder and look, and the file is there, so you can always pull it up and look at it if you're curious. The volume of a cylinder, V, is given by the formula V equals pi times r squared times h, where r is the radius and h is the height. Solve the formula for h, right? So we've got V equals pi r squared times h. All of this is being multiplied. So if we want to get rid of all this stuff being multiplied, we need to divide by everything we want to get rid of. So we want to keep h, so we're going to divide by pi r squared. And if I divide by pi r squared on the right, I have to divide by pi r squared on the left. These guys all cancel, these twos. Okay, so we're left with h on the right side by itself. I'm going to move it to the left, equals the volume divided by pi r squared. There's our equation for h, okay? So now we're going to use it. Now we're going to use h in the next problem. It says find the height, so find h, of a cylinder with a volume of 2,500 pi and a radius of 10. So I'm going to find h when the volume is 2,500 pi and the radius is 10. Okay, so this is 2,500 pi over 10 squared is 100, so the bottom is 100 pi. These pi's are going to cancel each other out. Pi divided by pi just cancels. And 2,500 divided by 100 is just 25, right? So h equals 25, and you always want to include units of measure if it's given to you. So this is saying feet, 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 feet. So the height is 25 feet. Okay, number 2. Water pressure. The water pressure on a submerged object is given by P equals 64D. That's it. That's our equation we have to work with. P is the pressure in pounds per square foot, and D is the depth of the object in feet. So again, we're getting measured in feet. Okay, solve for D. So we start with P equals 64D, and we're trying to get D alone, so we're going to divide by 64 on both sides of our equal sign. This side they cancel, so I have D left alone. D equals, and over here I have P divided by 64. So here's my equation I'm going to be using. So in the second part, B, find the depth, find D, of a submerged object if the pressure is 672. So D equals 672 over 64. I just plugged 672 in for P. And now on our calculator, we can do that. 672 divided by 64 equals 10.5. 10.5, and that's in feet, and it was the depth of a submerged object. If it has a pressure of 672 pounds per foot squared, I think, per square foot, then it has to be 10.5 feet deep. Anything deeper than that would have a higher pressure. Okay, number 3, you don't have to analyze what the answer means. Just think of it as letters, okay? Rearrange, get one letter on one side of the equal sign, and then plug in numbers for letters and solve for that one, right? For variables. Okay, so for this one, number 3, the equation of a line containing points A0 and 0B is given by the formula x over a plus y over b equals 1. You don't have to understand what that means. That looks totally confusing, but we just need that formula. Okay, so we're going to do something with it. First, it says to solve for y. All right, so here, over here, we want to get y by itself. So first, I want to get rid of x over a. So I have to subtract x over a from both sides of my equal sign. So I'm left with, I'm going to run out of room there. I'll write it down here. I'm left with y over b equals 1 minus x over a. And I want to get rid of divided by b, so I'm going to multiply both sides of my equation by b. And these b's cancel, so I've got y equals b times 1 minus x over a. That's my equation that I'm using, this guy right here. Y by itself equals the rest of this, okay? So then it says, suppose the line contains points for 0 and 0, -2. Well, up here, something 0, that first number is a, so 4 has to be our a value. And 0, -2, when a 0 is first, that second value is our b value, right? So that's b. And then it tells us x equals 3, find y. So we're plugging in a, b, and x, and looking for y into that equation. Y equals -2 times 1 minus 3 over 4. Right? So 1 minus 3/4 is 1/4. -2 times 1/4. If you have $1 and you get rid of 3/4, you got 1/4 left. So this is 1/4. And -2 times 1/4 is -2/4, right? Put a 1 under it, multiply straight across the top, straight across the bottom, which is -1/2. So y equals -1/2 when x is 3, a is 4, and b is -2, like it tells us in the problem. All right, last one, number 4, geometry. The surface area of a rectangular solid, like a shoebox, is given by the formula S equals, this whole long thing right here, S equals 2 times the length times width plus 2 times the length times the height plus 2 times the width times the height, right? All that stuff. Where L equals length, W equals width, and H equals height. Solve for H. So the first thing we gotta do is solve for H, and this is a really long problem. So we have S equals 2LW plus 2LH plus 2WH. Okay, and we want to get H alone, and right now it's in 2 of my terms over here. So I want to definitely get rid of this term. So if I subtract 2LW from both sides of my equal sign, I'm going to get S minus 2LW equals, on the left, and then on this side, this one cancels, so I'm just left with 2LH plus 2WH. Now my goal is to get H by itself, and right now both of these terms have been multiplied by H. So I'm going to factor that H back out. So I'm going to have S minus 2LW equals H, and then everything I get when I divide both of these terms by H gets put back in parentheses. So 2LH divided by H equals 2L, and 2WH divided by H equals 2W. Okay, so now here's H, but it's being multiplied by the parentheses. I want it by itself, so I'm going to divide by 2L plus 2W, and I got to divide this side by 2L plus 2W. And over here they cancel. So I'm left with, I'm going to put it down here, H equals S minus 2LW all over 2L. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what happened. I got a phone call or something. I don't know. Something happened. My phone stopped. But here we are. So we have H equals S minus 2LW all divided by 2L plus 2W. So now in part B, the total surface area of a rectangular solid with a length of 6 and a width of 3 is 72 square centimeters. Find the height. So now we know 72 goes here, the length is 6, and the width is 3. So we're going to use this equation and plug in the information we give us, and I'm going to do it over here where I have room. All right, so I have height equals 72 minus 2 times length is 6, width is 3, all over 2 times 6 plus 2 times 3. And then we just have to simplify using order of operations. So 2 times 6 is 12, 12 times 3 is 36, 72 minus 36 on top. 2 times 6 is 12, 2 times 3 is 6, 12 plus 6 is 18. 72 minus 36 is 36. 36 divided by 18 is 2. So our height equals 2, and it looks like everything is in centimeters. So if we multiply, up here it tells us 2LW plus 2LH plus 2WH equals surface area. 2 times 6 times 3 is 36. 2 times 6 times 2 is 24. And 2 times 3 times 2 is 4 times 3 is 12. So we have 36 plus 24 plus 12 is 72. So that works. It checks out. Height is 2. That seems small for the height. Seems like the height should be the longest, but there we go. If you guys have questions, let me know.